Welcome back. The March primary is a week away, and we are talking to Chad Peace from Independent Voter Project, asking the question, if no party preference voters could be locked out of the democratic process come March 3rd. Good morning, Chad. Great to have you on.
Great to be here.
You know, Bernie Sanders kind of came out and attacked California's primary voting system, basically making that claim that there is going to be millions of people in the state of California. I think there's about 30% who are no party preference, would be locked out of this presidential primary voting system. Right.
Well, you de facto get locked out, and so for a state that talks about reducing barriers to participation, this is a non-ideological issue. It doesn't matter whether you're supporting Bernie Sanders or Donald Trump or anybody else. Access to the ballot box is something that the legislators of California talk a lot about. The reality is that the way our confusing semi-closed primary system is conducted suppresses NPP turnout, which doesn't just have an effect on the presidential races. It has, even though we have nonpartisan races up and down the ballot, NPP turnout is substantially lower. We know that. LA Times did a study last election and showed that about 20% of NPP voters that said they wanted to vote in the presidential primary ended up not voting, and there's a lot of reasons for that. We've moved to mail-in ballots, yet if you're an NPP and you didn't fill out that little postcard that they sent you, you end up with a ballot that's blank. And so a voter has to go to the registrar, ask for another ballot, and obviously that's a big hurdle that substantially suppresses turnout.
And there's a lawsuit going on because constitutionally California is supposed to be an open primary state, but we're semi-closed, whatever that means. So can you explain what this lawsuit is?
It's most simply, the California Constitution does say the legislature shall provide for an open presidential primary. So on its face, a semi-closed primary is obviously not an open primary. The important legal distinction is that under an open primary, the voters get the choice. We want to vote, the door is open. Under a semi-closed primary, what that means is the door is closed to voters, and the door only opens if a party allows you to. And that's why we have the confusing rules, because the Democratic Party and two others have said, we'll open the door if you'll choose one of our ballots. The Republican Party said, no, we're going to keep our door closed. The lawsuit is saying, look, we have a taxpayer-funded primary. It's an important part of the public election process. The Constitution says we shall have an open primary so that NPP voters, which are now 6 million voters in California, 30% of the electorate, they shouldn't have to go through all kinds of hoops to unlock a door. We should have easy voting access, and we should have an open primary, and there's an easy remedy to it.
Okay, so we are now a week away from the primary, and there are 6 million voters who are dealing with this. So what is someone who is a no party preference voter supposed to do now?
Well, I'd say the first thing is vote regardless. Even if you end up with a ballot that has blank presidential candidates, vote regardless, because there are elections that independent NPP voters will be the difference, whether it's a race for city council or mayor, or assembly, Congress. Those are all races that NPP should vote regardless. If you want to participate in the presidential primaries, first, you can always go to the poll on the day of the election. If you're an NPP voter, you can ask for a crossover ballot for Democrat. We actually do have same-day registration, which if you want to vote in the Republican primary, change your party registration to Republican. If you're one of those AIP voters, which we know 80% think they're NPP voters, well, go to the polling place or call your registrar and make sure you know how you can vote. But even if you get locked out of the presidential primary because you don't know the rules, vote on all the races up and down the ballot, because NPPs will be the difference.
Have other presidential candidates spoken out on California's system? Because California is one of those prized states. I mean, there's a lot at stake in the electorate. Have other candidates spoken out? I mean, it seems funny that Bernie Sanders is considered very left of the party, and most independents, I would think, are moderate, but you say, no, there's actually quite a bit of non-party preference voters who are...
Well, independent voters are difficult to put a label on, because there's independent voters that are left of the Democratic Party, right of the Republican Party. Some of them are independent because they just see both parties as the same. But in terms of presidential candidates, Democrats are spending a whole lot of money trying to educate NPP voters to either select a Democratic ballot or Bernie Sanders campaigns actually said, just register Democrats so that we don't have that confusion at the end. I think what's important about that is why are presidential candidates have to run in 50 states. So they're learning the rules in 50 different states. They don't have time and the resources to educate, we have 17 million voters in California. Is that reasonable that candidates have to be doing the education process? Our argument is first, the election should be open, should be easy for voters. And second, it's the obligation of the state where the taxpayers are funding the primary to educate voters and make it as easy as possible.
Well said. Reduce the barriers to letting us vote. All right. Chad Peace, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
If you haven't heard, there's a week to go. Do the homework. All right, well, the Aztecs' undefeated streak, as you know, is over, but not their dreams. Up next,